Hi there and welcome to another PSD Tuts Plus spoon-fed Photoshop tutorial. I'm Gavin Steele, and in today's tutorial I'm going to take you through how to create a retro urban gig poster in Photoshop. The original tutorial is by Andrea. Do check it out over at psd.tutsplus.com, and this is the final product. This is what we're going to be creating, a really cool stylized poster. Lots of cool little tips and tricks along the way, and all of the files are linked to that you need for this tutorial. They happen to be freely available in this tutorial from www.sxc.hu. Do check that you've got the right rights and restrictions and the author's allowed the image to be used for commercial use if that's what you're going to be doing, but these are the files that we're going to be using in this project. Don't forget to check out our video section for lots of other cool quick tips and video tutorials on the site, and all based on Photoshop. So let's get started by opening up Photoshop, and we're going to create a new document. Now if you're going to be creating a document that is actually poster size, you want to be creating one that has a width of around 500 millimeters and a height of around 707 millimeters. That's a standard B2 size, I think, but just for this tutorial I'm going to be using A4 bit of paper or paper size, just so that it keeps the file size down. Make sure you've got your resolution set high to 300 pixels per inch, and we're going to be using CMYK color and 8-bit for that. So I'm going to create my page, and I'm just going to zoom out so we get the whole thing on the screen. There we go. So here's our poster. We're going to set our color on the left hand side here. We're going to set that first color to 65A 2A5, and then using the paint bucket tool we're just going to drop that color right onto our background layer. Now I'm going to grab a new layer, and we're going to use our brush tool for this, and we're going to brush in some wavy kind of abstract shapes in the background. We're going to use a really light color. So I'm going to start looking at around A0 D269 and click on OK. And I'm just going to paint this on top, and we can see it's a little bit too dark and a little bit too green. So if I just come up here, get a little bit yellow, a little bit lighter, I'm going to click on OK. Change my brush up here. I'm going to reduce the hardness. That means we're going to have a nice soft edge around our brush. Opacity around 50%, that's okay. And we get a much nicer color and a much nicer stroke. Now I'm going to increase the size of my brush. I'm using the open and close square brackets next to the enter or return key. And I'm just going to create some little swirls around the page. Like so. And then I'm going to reduce my diameter a bit, maybe come in a bit more. Okay. Gonna just come across, maybe a lighter color. And then even lighter maybe. Just some highlights. Like so, that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to head up to filter, and we're going to apply a blur, and it's going to be a Gaussian blur. And with our Gaussian blur box, we're going to set that looking at our actual canvas. We kind of want it to just blend away into the background. If we just reduce that, we can see the kind of effect that that's having. And somewhere around there looks pretty good. You can't really see that there's strokes anymore. I'm going to click on OK. And again, just play around my opacity. I don't want it to be too strong. That looks pretty good to me. So probably take it down to around 50%, somewhere down there. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is create these circles. So I've just moved my final product down here. We're going to create these circles that are dotted around the canvas. So we head back to Photoshop. I'm going to grab these two layers here. I'm going to open up my background layer, and I'm just going to merge them together so they're one layer. And then I'm going to create a nice elliptic shape with our ellipse tool, and I'm going to set the color for that. We're going to set that to FB F8 CD. Click on OK, and then I'm going to draw out my tool like so. Holding down Shift is going to give me a perfect circle. I'm going to start big, and it's going to fill that in for us. Double click on that layer, we're going to get our layer styles. We're going to apply a stroke. We're going to set that to 1 pixel. we're going to use the same color, and then we're going to have our fill, our opacity set, everything's fine, click on OK, and then reduce our fill right down to 0, so we get this little gap in the middle, and we click away and you can see we've got that circle there. Now what we can do is Command J to duplicate that layer, Command T, free transform, hold down Shift and Alt, and we're going to scale that down again like so, and hit enter. Command J to duplicate that layer, Command T to free transform the new circle, bring that a little bit further in, and we can hit enter and we get our circle. I'm going to do that one more time, Command J, Command T, and just reduce that down and hit enter. Now there's one more thing to notice about these circles, if we go back to our original, is that some of them are lighter than others, so we just need to play around with the opacity on a couple of our layers. So I'm going to make the second circle from the center, this one on the outside, just going to reduce the opacity down just a touch like so, and then maybe the outer layer for this, just bring that down just a touch. And I'm going to grab all of these, stick them in a group, Command G or Control G on a PC, duplicate that group, V on the keyboard, and drag it over to the left down here. Going to grab my original, bring it up to the top right, hit Command T, and I'm just going to scale that down. Move that up here. And again, I'm going to hold down V on the keyboard, and I'm going to drag and I'm sorry, not V, Alt on the keyboard, and I'm going to drag and create a copy of that larger one, and again Command T, and just bring this one down a touch and position that. And we can have a look at the original to see where they're positioned. We've got a big one on the top left, then a medium one, and the one on the right that we've got, and then another smaller one just appearing here. So I'm going to grab this one here, bring that down. This one's okay, and I'm going to create a smaller one in here. Command J, V, oops, hold down Alt, drag that over, Command T, and again scale that one right down and hit enter. Now because we've got these all in our groups, what we can do is we can go back into these and we can increase the opacities down, change that opacity down, make that a bit fainter for that. And then this one, again, going to bring this all the way back up, maybe just bring this one down. Like so, just to add a little bit of variety in there to those shapes. So that's all of our circles. I'm going to grab all of those, stick them in a group, and again, Command E, and I'm going to merge them down. If we go back and look at our original image, you can see that our background layer is slightly out of focus, and you can see some of these circles kind of lose their way as we start to add more and more elements to the poster. So actually I'm going to come back and Command Alt Z, undo that, and I'm going to leave them all in a group for now. Just in case when we apply more styles and more textures, we might lose some of the detail here. We can always come back in and increase the opacity of those circles. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to head over to our background layer. We're going to duplicate it, so hit Command J on the keyboard. Then we're going to head up to Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and we're going to set this to 2%, and Gaussian is fine, and monochromatic is fine. In fact, let's change that to uniform, and let's click on OK. So we've added that noise now, and now we're going to mask that out. So let's click on our mask layer, and we're going to grab our brush, and again big soft brush like we used before, and we're just going to paint in some areas again just to randomize that kind of that textured layer to help blend in our background. So just like before, just going to grab some of this and just slight little details that are going to really add to the overall texture of your poster. Obviously, if you're not doing it on A4 and you're doing it on a much larger size, you're going to really see these details. But on A4 size, we're not really going to be able to see them. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw our vertical lines. So let's set our color Okay, we're going to set the color to FB, F8, CD. I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to grab our line tool, which is hidden away over here. So we've got our line tool, and we're going to try and evenly space these out. So I'm going to start here and just drag it down. You can see we can change the angle of our line. If we hold down Shift, it's going to make sure that we create a nice straight line. And there we have our first line. If I click away, we can see it there. We come back on, we've got that layer selected. And now what we can do is V on the keyboard, hold down Alt, going to move to the right, and let go, keeping hold of Alt. Just move that along, like so. And I'm sure you can see they're all perfectly aligned and so on, but they're not really. We're going to align them now. First thing you need to do is, on a couple of those, I didn't hold down Shift, so you can see we get this drop down at the bottom. So we've got a drop there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So that'll be the last 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I grab them, V on the keyboard, you can just move them up just to make sure they are at the top and the bottom there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of them like so, and we can use these align tools up at the top here. Okay, but we're going to add an extra one here because I think it's going to leave us with this with that gap over there. So I'm going to grab the first one again, holding down Alt, drag to the left, hold down Shift so it stays in the same alignment, grab that first one, come up to the last one, hold down Shift, select that layer. We've got all of those selected now. We can come up to our alignment tools up at the top, and it's this one right in the middle. Click on that, and you can see now they're all perfectly aligned, which is great news because that's what we want them to be. So we can group them because they're still selected. Command G on a Mac or Control G on a PC. And I'm going to call this layer Lines. And then I'm going to duplicate that group. Command T, rotate them 90 degrees, like so, and hit Enter. V on the keyboard again, hold down Alt, I'm going to drag up, and then just nudge them into place, like so. Alt again, going to come down, like so. And again, you can just nudge them into place. Now if you do get a couple that overlap and some of the lines are slightly stronger than others, that actually adds to the overall effect. If you don't want that, just zoom in and be a little bit more precise where you're placing them, or create those individual lines yourself and save your, but by putting them into groups and copying them using the Alt key, we're just saving the time of actually laying out each of those, and they're all perfectly aligned as well because we use the Align tool. So I'm going to grab all these copies, drop them into lines, and again I'm just going to leave them for now because we might want to come back later and just drop the opacity of these or the opacity of each individual line, or however we want to do it. And one thing we should do is, I'm just going to undo that, is we should group these into horizontal lines and vertical lines because we're going to be applying different effects to each of those groups. So I'm going to grab these, group them, and they were our H lines and these were our vertical lines. So let me just amend our name there. Okay, and we can merge them down. Again, unless you want to keep them there for later on. So now we've got our two groups. We're going to grab our horizontal lines, and we're going to use the Distort and the Wave tool. Let's move my menu over here. We're going to have to zoom in for this bit, so I'm going to hold down Z on the keyboard and just zoom in. Pull this back out to the right. Hopefully that's in a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my vertical line, so Command J. And I'm going to move that up to the top. And then with that selected, I'm going to head over to Filter and Distort. Let's come down to Wave. Bring that over. And we need to set that to 5, 10, 200, 5, 20, 100, and 100. Make sure you've got square set. Repeat edge pixels is fine. Click on OK. And then we're going to head up to Filter, Distort, over to Polar Coordinates. And then inside Polar, make sure you've got it set to Rectangular and click on OK. And we kind of now get these firing out from the center there towards us. So it kind of gives a bit of direction to the actual poster. And we can head back and turn off our vertical lines. We're going to come to our horizontal lines now. And with the horizontal lines, we're going to head up to Distort again. And this time we're going to come down to Twirl. Just going to move this over. And we want to have this set to about 20 degrees. Let's click on OK. Takes a couple seconds, and now we get this nice little bend in our line, and we can Command J to duplicate that, Command T, and now we can rotate that 90 degrees, let go, and now we have our kind of bended and twirled and kind of misshaped texture for our background. And let's go in and have a look. So it looks something similar to this on our original. Now you'll see there's a slight faintness to some of the lines, so if we come back into Photoshop, all we have to do is reduce the opacity layer, bring that down just enough, and then these vertical lines that are coming out to us, they're a bit strong, just reduce some of those until you get something like that that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we need to head over to our texture, and let's come over here to our clipboard. Just going to drag that down and then come back over, and let me just grab that from my desktop. So we can get the file open on my desktop. There's our texture. Click on OK, and then we're just going to drag this straight into our document. Let's position it, Command T, we're going to scale it. And then once you've scaled it, we can play around with where we kind of want these scratches to be. And just move that over. You can even nudge it, and that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to move this to the top, like so. And then once you've resized it, we're going to set it to multiply, like so. And already it's starting to take effect. Already it's aged it. Those scratches are shining through, and it's really added to the piece already, which is the great thing about textures. And there's loads of them out there, and loads of really great texture sites. We're going to play around with it a little bit more. We're going to head over to our levels. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustment, and Levels. And we're going to play around with these levels. We're going to set excuse me, our levels to just bring everything over and in a little bit, not too light, and just move this over like so. Click on OK, and again it's just about playing around with that. In fact, I'm not happy with that at all, so let's just grab our levels. There we go, and let's bring the left just over to the just a touch, because we don't want it to be too dark, and that looks great. Okay, we can grab our Skyline, click on Open, and again V on the keyboard, just drag that in. We can close these down, we don't need these anymore. Save them to a textured folder somewhere, so you can always come back to them. V on the keyboard, we're going to bring this down to about here, and I'm going to come back to the original just so we can get the placement right. We need a little bit of space down at the bottom, but it's pretty much going to fill this bottom third down here. So back into Photoshop, going to bring that down to, yeah, I'd say about there. Command T, and just going to scale this out and just nudge it down. Looks pretty good. And hit enter. We're going to set our skyline to multiply. Okay, and again, it already feels like it's part of the poster there. We're going to head up to hue and saturation in our adjustments. Where are we? There we go. And in our hue and saturation, we're going to make sure we have colorize set, and we're going to put in 25, 80, and then 20 for our lightness. Then we're going to hold down Alt, and we're going to move our mouse right between these two layers and just apply it, clip it to this layer, like so. And that applies that layer adjustment to that specific sky layer that we created. Okay, so once we've done that, we're going to create a new layer behind our cityscape, and we're going to draw in these beams of light, or whatever you want to call them, coming up from the background here. I think they're beams of light or something like that. So back into Photoshop, and we're going to come underneath this layer, create a new layer in here, and we can use the rectangle tool for this. So head over here into the rectangle tool, and we're going to come just about here and just drag this straight up like so. And unfortunately the color's a little bit too pale, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this red like so. Increase my fill, get that up there so we can see this nice bright red color. Once we've done that, we're going to set it to lighten down here, and we're going to reduce it down to about 60%, somewhere around there, so we can still see some of this texture coming through. To make sure that we match the shape of the building, you can see the building slightly leaning there, and if you look here, it actually kind of matches the building. So let's come back into Photoshop, let's zoom in just a touch, and let's bring this up. Let's get rid of our adjustments layer so we can see everything. Okay, and let's move that up. So right now it's a little bit off. So we need to hit Command T, right click inside and hit Skew, and then we're going to play around with this just so we get it in line with our building. So I think that's okay. Let's just bring that over like so. Let's bring this in. And over. And then we can hit enter. And we kind of get this light shining off to the side there. We could have straightened up this building, but I think just for the kind of quick, kind of rough poster kind of look, I think that's going to work just fine. And then I'm just going to zoom out, not too much, like so. Okay, now we need to apply the swirls now, coming down this beam of light. So back into Photoshop, and in order to do that, we're going to head up to Filter. Actually, before we do that, let's just blend this down. So Q on the keyboard takes into Quick Mask, B, grab your brush, and we're just going to get rid of this, like so. Okay, Q again, come over to here, clip on our layer mask, and we're going to apply this mask as if it's disappearing into the night or into the sky. Then we can head up to Filter, Distort and Ripple. Have that set to about 50. And let's apply that to the whole layer. Click on OK. About 50 large is fine. Click on OK. Then we're going to go to Filter, Blur and Radial Blur. Have that set to 5, Spin and Best. Click on OK. It's going to take a little while for that to actually take effect. And then we're going to repeat this for the other buildings. And then we're going to come over and look at these circles again and maybe create a little crescent on one of them, which I think is here. Yep, we're going to create this little crescent around these circles and then start working on some of the text. Now it does say in the tutorial that you should be doing the text in Illustrator, but again, just for the level this is aimed at, we're going to create this text in Photoshop itself. So that's finished now. We get a little bit of a swirl there. Again, if we zoom in, you get a much better idea of what's going on if you had a larger poster there, or larger page size, should I say. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's not perfect, but I'm going to go and apply that to all of my other buildings, and then we'll come back and start working on that crescent and the text. So here are my finished beams here. I've only applied it to another two. Again, you can go crazy and add them where you want on any of the towers, but I'm just going to stick with those two. The next thing I'm going to do is we're going to add this crescent. So we're going to come back a load of these layers here. We're going to come all the way back to our circle layer. We're going to come in here. Again, I'm just going to grab some of these and just increase some of the opacities. In fact, just to make that whole thing stand out, I'm going to duplicate that whole layer. It's going to make them come through a little bit stronger. And then just reduce that down just a touch, like so. We're going to create this crescent around this circle up in the top left here. So I'm going to zoom in on that. There we go. Okay, just bring my opacity up right up there. Okay, so we're going to create our crescent around this circle shape here. Head over to our custom shape tool, grab the crescent tool, and I'm going to create a new layer. And I want it to be nice and big like so. Just transform that, start to position it like so. It's probably going to be a little bit bigger. Okay, and then just start to nudge that into place. And again, probably just a little bit bigger. Okay, that's pretty good. Hit enter. And let's have a look at it on our piece here. It's actually white on our piece here, or quite bright. So we're going to come back in here. And then we're going to set it to overlay. And just going to change that color. FB F8C, and let's change that to D. Click on OK. Increase the opacity all the way up. Let's click off Z, and let's just zoom out like so. And there's our cool little crescent, kind of, the moon of the night sky. And just like we've got there, now what we can do is we can create our writing and our text. Let's grab our text tool. Let's type in big city. Let's change that to an orange color. Bit stronger than that, and set that to overlay. And in fact, I can move this right up like so. Try and get the color right. Somewhere up there. In fact, yep, that's fine. think we might need to bring it underneath our texture there. That looks great. Okay, so we've got big city set there, and then we're going to add another bit of text here, and that's going to be vibes. Going to grab that and grab my character tool, and we're just going to move this, just spread it a little bit like so. I'm going to increase its size, bring that back in, and then we can just nudge that down into place, and we can change that color to white. And again, set that to overlay, and that's starting to look pretty good. Next thing we need to do is think about the text going along the bottom, and again we do that in just exactly the same way. Just grab your text tool, write it down, then make sure it's set to overlay, and play around with opacities to get things shining through however you want them to shine through. We can apply a drop shadow to your main text. Again, just double click on the layer, head over to drop shadow, have that set to multiply, and then we're going to choose a light blue, so grab a color from there, click on OK. 75% is fine, 120 degrees is fine, 505 fine, click on OK. Copy that layer style, paste the layer style like so. Let's just have a look at that in here. Drop shadow, multiply, light blue, so something a little bit lighter, and again just looking at what effect it's actually having. There we go, just move that off. Now back to multiply, just try out different layer styles. There it is, click on OK, and let's just zoom in and have a look, and you can just see again on a bigger platform, on a bigger media, and your poster, that's really going to help that stand out, that just that slight little blue there. And again we can apply exactly the same. If we copy, right click and copy the layer style to our Crescent. Where are we? There we go. Right click, paste our layer style, and that's going to give that a nice little shadow. And then let's zoom out and pull over. And that's the tutorial. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I've been Gavin Steele, taking you through Andrea's how to create a retro urban gig poster in Photoshop. I hope you enjoyed it.